Hi everyone, this is GeoWolf from Laughman Productions Squared, and I'm back for the hopefully last segment of our XSI behind the scenes kind of thing. Let me go ahead and just get the Fraps frame benchmark thing out of the way. I'm going to pull up the pull it up on my LCD screen on my on my keyboard, so I can just make sure it's recording or not. Anyway, remember last time we were going through and I think I mentioned about how I had to fix something or whatever, and I would start back up the behind the scenes thing once I had it done, and I have gotten that one section done. Actually, I've gotten all the bottom section of the, well, not all the bottom section, but most of it done. I still have to add in the actual poles that will do the support for the railing, and the smaller pole in between the actual platform and the handrail section of it, but I've got most of that done. I actually went ahead back through and actually redid it entirely. And I'll go ahead and open that now so you can see what's going on. This one. So as you can see, here we go. I've got the texture working there. But when I did this, I went back through and I used a bunch of smaller sections of these instead of one entire long one, just to better utilize the texture that way. As you can see, we have the parts coming down here. These are actually done with, like I was doing them before, with the curve that goes down there, and then we extrude a set of polygons along that curve. That's how these sections were created. I'm not sure if they're actually exactly correct. I was kind of eyeballing it, so I may have to come back in and modify it a bit later on. That's part of dealing with modeling, is to see if you have things done correctly or not. However, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to start on the canopy, I guess we'll call it, bit that goes across the top here. We're going to use the same extruding along the curve thing that we did with these, except we'll be doing it along a curve that is essentially an arch. This process is a lot more involved really than this one, because you want to make sure that the arch is symmetrical. In other words, that the points are all lined up appropriately, that they are lined up along the X and Y axis, so that they're not they're not off either forward or backward of each other, and that the points themselves are not lower or higher than the corresponding point on the other side. So it's really a really complex kind of thing to work out. Then you also have to figure out how to actually do the arch itself, as far as getting it to look like an arch. Right now, though, we need to find out another measurement, which is how high we can do this arch, as far as the actual height of it. There is a certain, well, we can actually probably just do it in here, just doing just kind of a eyeballing thing. These are set at a distance of about chest height of the player model. I looked up the sizing for the player model, and I was right at 72 units tall is how high the player models are. So these are at about, I think it was, yeah, 40-ish. 41 to 45 and a half, it looks like. So these are right about in the middle, or a little bit above the middle, really. So the canopy has to be at least 30 units in height from this point here, from the top of this. And there is a certain height that we have to be able to go to. For example, let me see, we need Steam. It's not running at the moment. Was recording Leviathan for Mass Effect 3 and had to turn it off because for some reason a whole bunch of programs that were running were causing the game to lag a lot. But let's go ahead and get this thing restarted here. But the way it's set up is that I'm actually building this model to one particular pathway which has a overhang on it, so that we don't have to worry about making two models, one for places with an overhang and one for one for places with no overhang. So they're all the same. But you have to do it to the one that has the restrictions. Otherwise, if you build it to the one that doesn't have the restrictions, then when you put it into the map, the restrictions are going to mess around with it. Like maybe the model will go into a ceiling or a wall or something. So it's always important to make models to areas that have restrictions rather than ones that don't. Just so that you don't have to make two of the same model for each space. GFL, Games for Life. Let's see. Chris.exe. What the hell? Most of the time I will accept friend requests and group requests. Most of the time. But let's see. Let's go to Tools. We're already on Tools. So, Source SDK. 3,592 hours I've had working with Source SDK. That's a hell of a lot. Especially considering how much work there still has to do on the mod. But let's go ahead and open up Hammer and have a look around. So, c25.vmf, and I'm going to go ahead and go back down in through here. So, I'm building it to this one right here. As you can see though, there isn't really that much more headroom past the player model. The railings come up to, I guess, right about here somewhere. About chest or abdomen height right about here. So really have this area here, just this kind of area here to work with. The total height of this model is 100 and something. 111 or something like that, I think. Let me see. Ignore grouping and get those to 104. So our model cannot exceed 104 units. Actually, it can exceed 100 and let's say 100 units. Well, let's give it more. Let's say 98 units. Let's give it a little more of a gap between the ceiling and the actual model. So it's probably going to be right around the edge of this. Is where it's going to end up being at. It's also important that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need 8 points. One central point and then 3 others, or 4 others too. Actually, I guess it's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. 9 points. So 1 point in the center to act as the peak, and then 4 others on either side to form the actual arch. And you don't actually have to do it this way to how the geometry is made, but I find that if we do it this way to look more realistic, I guess, it'll fit in better with this and with this particular the way this archway is made, as opposed to having one that has, 21 points or something with 1 and then 10 on each side, which would be a lot smoother. But it wouldn't. It wouldn't look as correct, I don't think. But we'll see how it turns out. So let's go ahead and minimize that. Close this. Not connected. Well, you know what, Origin? Screw you. Should have closed you anyway. Done with you for now. Anyway, so we need to first make the curve. And what we want to do is we want to go from the center of a spot on this one to the center of a spot on this one, or roughly the same spot across. We're just going to do the actual curve in the same way that we were before. We'll use this view from the right side, because we'll be able to see it from this angle, and then we'll also use the top angle and the front so that we can line things up properly. So let's go ahead and go to curve and draw linear. So we're going to go ahead and zoom in real quick here on this side. And let's not say in the actual center, but the center of the I guess the X center of the X axis and not the Y axis as well. So just like right about here somewhere, probably, but a little bit down further, so it actually looks like it's been connected or welded or in some other way fused with the rest of the railing. So we'll start there. That'll be our base for it. And now we need another 3 points. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do the fourth one, which should be about in the center. And then we'll do another 3. The tough part about doing it this way is that judging the distance from these 2 points and the height as well between these two points here can be a pain, especially this distance here, because there's not really any way to tell how long of a distance this is to here and this is to here. Well, I guess we can with this. Now that we have the ruler going, but with just the visual viewports here, without having to use the ruler or any sort of measuring kind of tool, it's kind of impossible to tell if the distance between these 2 points is the same distance as between these two. And they should be the same because they're both the same point on the different edges or different sections. So the first thing I want to do is this side actually looks kind of good for the most part, but probably have to fix it up anyway. First of all, we want to make sure we get this in the appropriate place. So we want to zoom in over here, and as you can see, it is pretty much straight on. The straightness of the curve is, so we don't have to worry about messing with too much stuff on this as far as the, I guess, horizontal movement of it. But we want to make sure that this point is level with that point. So, shortcut to edit a curve is M, by the way. Found that out last night. Whoops. Alright, so, and you also cannot modify curves with the these tools when you're in the actual, or I guess you can. No, yeah, you can't. So, it's just kind of annoying. Actually, you can. You go by point, though. Okay, so never mind what I just said. You can do it by point. But I guess it actually isn't exactly the same. So some adjustment will have to be made, I suppose. It is important to get it as near as correct as possible. Just because if you don't, even though it's a little, just like a little bit off, it might still look weird once you actually extrude the polygons across it. So we go up now, and we want to, first of all, make sure we have an equal distance between all these points, which we don't at the moment, obviously. So we want to take this point, V it, and just kind of move it around a bit. And do the same with these. Just want to try and get an equal amount of space. in between all these points on this side. And by doing this, we can line up the points better on the other side. Next, we want to make sure the actual arch looks like it should. Again, you don't actually have to have it exactly the same, but it should look somewhat the same. Just to further connect the two arches together to, you know, kind of say that this arch is or rather this arch is a continuation of this arch, just in a different medium. So really the arches you make in Hammer are going to be way more accurate than the arches that you can make in XSI without taking, you know, hours to modify it precisely to what it should be. I don't really have hours to work on it, so we're just going to do a kind of eyeball kind of method here. I'm just going to kind of look and see how these particular edges form. So as you can see, really the edges take a more kind of a graduated approach to coming up to the climax of the archway here. So I want to try and copy that in the arch we're making over in XSI. However, if you notice, these bottom edges are actually a little bit longer and get shorter as they go up to the top here. So maybe we should try also emulating that as well. Actually, looking at this, it's actually doing that pretty well at the moment. This is what I would consider to be centered, pretty much anyway. It looks centered to me at least it does. Center's probably going to be about maybe a little bit off of center. Center's about right here, and that's just a little bit off center. Maybe I will, whoops, move it a little bit over, just a little bit. And we'll also move this one over and up just a little hair. And do the same here. It's also important that whenever you move stuff around that you make sure that you adjust things so that it's still, like, since we moved it like we did, we need to actually move these out a little bit more. And this needs to be moved up a little bit more. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to try and get these on the same points as their left side brethren. So we just need to figure out where those points are located here and move them into place. Again, never just leave it like that, because if you zoom in, you'll see how far off that actually is when you zoom further in. And even that, if you zoom in some more, you can see it's sort of off there. If you zoom in more, you can see that it's still off. And now it's on appropriately. And again, the other issue is the spacing, which is a lot more difficult to deal with. It is on the correct height axis, though. On the Y axis, it's correctly spaced, but we need the actual distance here. So it's not on the grid, so it's a little harder to tell. But both these points are pretty much, I'd say, at about the same distance from the grid point. So 14 and 7, so that's going to be, well, I think positive 14. because we're going from -7 to 14. So it's going to be 7 to get there and then another 14 to go. So no, 14 plus 7, so 21. So 21 units in distance. So over here, we're going to want to move this over to 21, minus 21 of this particular point here. So it's sitting at, we'll say roughly, again, 7. So minus 21 is going to be 28. So we want to move it to right about in here somewhere. I think we want to make sure that we have, keep it just off of where it's supposed to be at. So that's looking pretty close. It's actually really kind of hard to judge these things, because the perspective makes it seem like this is higher when it's not really that much higher. But this here and this here looks to be about equal. You can't really tell if these are equal until you get the next one in place, though, because that kind of puts things into a better perspective. So let's go ahead and do that. And then once you also have all the points in line to where you think they should be, you can fine-tune it if they're still not exactly correct. So we're going to go up to this point. That one actually is on. Okay, interesting. So now we want to find out the distance between this point and this point. Again, we're doing everything from the perspective of the left side because the right side is the one we're trying to mirror to the left side. So we need to zoom out here for a second and go in here. Alright, so let's have a look. So we're about 13.5. We'll just call it 13 to what looks like to be 30-ish, maybe 31-ish, 31.25 or 30.25 really. So 13 to, we'll say 30, since it's, well, let's go 14 to 30 because it's closer to the 14 side really over here. So that'd be 16. So we need to figure out what 16 minus 16 plus minus 28 as far as this is concerned is going to be. So it's going to be 44, I believe. As you can see, it's way off, so we'll go ahead and move it over and see what it looks like. So it's going to be on this side of the 44. Just off of it. So you can see that is similar. It might be a little bit longer, but it's the correct height, I believe. Yeah. So now you can see that this, these 2 points are pretty much exactly where they should be. And then we'll do the next one, which will be the last one, which will put these two into perspective as well. It's not too far off on the height. Really. Alright, and then we need to do the same distance thing again. So this one was 30. This one's going to be 42, so that's going to be 12. So we need to add 12 onto this, whatever this negative number is. Add negative 12 to it. So 44 plus 12 is going to be 56. Again, it's not going to be directly on 56, but it'll be near it. No, not quite. Correct. As you can see here, we have a bit of an issue popping up. Now that we have it molded, you can see how it doesn't appropriately mirror it. So instead of doing it that way, let's just do it again by eyeball. It may not be exactly correct, but at the same time it's going to be hopefully a bit more accurate. And then once we get to this part, what we just do is we move this over until it looks correct for both of these. And we can actually even raise it a bit. Alright, so there we have our arch. And now that we have the arch, let's go ahead and move the arch down to the end of this, since it's in the middle right now. So we'll put it right about here. So we'll do the first one. Now we need to create a new segment that we can use here. What we want to go ahead and do is to select one of these to get the scale information here. I actually already have it written down, so but if you didn't have it written down, you'd find it by clicking on it and looking at this. This will allow you to create an object that has the same properties as this, so it'll actually be the same size and width and all that stuff. Go to primitive, polygon mesh, and cylinder. We want to go with, let's see, base will be 1. We're actually just going to put all this as, let's see, well this will be up at 20. But this will be at 1. Now, let's go ahead and move it up and move it over. So that's it. So it's around here so we can use it. And we'll put in the different scaling information here. So 2.4926. Same for this one. And then the middle one is 5, 6, 3, 9, 5. Alright. That should give us a an object that is about the same size as this one. So now what we want to do is we want to shrink this a bit. Let's go to points and we'll bring this down. So that's not as long or long as these ones are. Next we're going to move it over. Then move it over this way. We want to put this at the center of the this curve here, or rather put it so that the curve is at the center of the object. Alright, and then we want to actually scale this down a bit. We don't want it to be the full size of this. We want it to kind of come off of it a bit as a smaller piece here. Alright, now we want to sink this down into the actual handrail. Alright. And now we did what we did with this other section here, which is to select the polygons of this piece here. So if we actually kind of just zoom around it real quick here, you can see how it get to the appropriate angle here. You can see how it kind of sticks out like that, and looks like it's been welded in or fused into the actual handrail itself. What we want to do now is we want to select these polygons here. Let's see, polygons, U to turn on the mode so we can select them, and select all of the polygons on this side. Alright, and then components, and, or actually rather polymesh, and extrude along curve. I'll pick this curve. I can select the stupid thing. Polymesh along curve, and this curve. There we go. Alright, so here we have that same thing we had from before, since we only have one subdivision put in there. Now you can do one of two things. You can do your own amount of subdivisions here, or you can go per knot, which will put whatever subdivisions you have listed here per each point you have on the actually disabled all these other views. Per point you have on these on this curve. The one thing you have to watch out for is this here. What we want to do then to fix this is to go to here, modify curve, and add point. And what we want to do then is to go back out to the regular mode, go to points, select this point, and move it down. So we have the same kind of thing going on here as we do on the other side. This is just to kind of further create the same effect as there is on the other side. It's going a little bit further. Okay. So then we have our arch here. As I mentioned before, you could go the same number of spaces here, or you could go with your own number. So I could put 20 here, and we'd have a smoother curve here. Yes, but it wouldn't look quite as right. Or if I wanted to, we could also go per knot and do 20 subdivisions per knot, which means we do 9 times 20 subdivisions on the model. But instead, I'd rather stick with just one per knot. So now what we can do with this is actually just copy and paste it. We don't have to do anything with the actual with the curve that can stay where it's at, and each polymesh will actually be able to be modified by that curve. So for instance, if I just take this, Control D, V, and we move it, and let's say later I want to go back in and edit this curve. Say point, take this point here, and see all the points will actually be modified along the entire structure, because they'll all be connected to this particular it's actually kind of interesting looking. Anyway, so as you can see, that it's pretty robust what you can do with these. You want to make sure you get these also equally spaced between each other. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it. Just trying to figure out, let's see. No, I didn't do, okay, Control D. And now move them. And again, just kind of eyeball it. That looks about right. Control D, V. And once you do it once, you can actually have it continue doing it that amount. Now once we get to here, it's going to be kind of interesting, because there won't be one of these here on this side, but we're going to actually have to go halfway, maybe meet an arch that'll go across the top here. But we'll save that for later. Just trying to think here. Maybe we should extend these out a bit more. This creates a lot of stuff, so maybe we should say that we have three, one every so often. But like for instance here, we have that one there, then we have this one over here, roughly in the same spot. Then between these two we have a third one, like so. And we space them out this way. You still get that same look that you're going for, but with less pieces. So Control D, V. So that's about correct there, I think. I'm actually going to get rid of that one. Leave the curve there. If you delete this curve, then I think you also mess up with these, so we'll leave the curve where it's at. Let's go ahead and take these and Control D them, and then move them the appropriate distance here. Let's kind of maybe modify these inner ones to make them a little bit longer of a distance between them. I think I'm a little bit too wide on these ones, so let's move these back over a bit. Let me just get rid of that one. Alright, now, these central ones now, we don't want to go all the way across, like I was mentioning before. Instead, we want to go ahead and do is select them, and, well, zoomed out there because I had A. And go to the properties and extrude up. So start. Alright, so that kind of messes it up over there though, so what we'll have to do is maybe we'll have to make another arch just for this particular one. So essentially what we do is leave this one as 1 per knot. Take this, Control D, V, move it over to here, and let's go ahead and edit this one. Actually, we'll go by point this way, it'll be easier. Essentially what we're going to do then is this part's going to come straight up, and we'll just go straight across to the arch on this side. But first we need to make the arch that would go across that way, or at least the curve that will allow it to happen. So this you can see is a much larger area here than the other way around. Let's see, get all this stuff out of the way. My notes here. The distance was 159, I believe I said. Or no, 132. I don't know, let's see, let's get over to hammer here. Where are my sections here? There we go. So 159 across, but 100 down, and 132 in length. So yeah, 159 across. That's a lot more than this 120 on the pathway. So what we'll need to do is figure out how we want to do this. So let's bring up a calculator here, and let's be at 159. So let's divide that by 9, which is what we have right now. That's not going to work. So we need to find out a number of points that we can use. That's an odd number that will allow us to do this properly. There is also another way we could do this. Found this interesting, neat little site here that you can do a bunch of different math things with. So we'll say factors of 159. So we've got 1, 3, 53, and 159. So as you can see, it's really quite limited as far as if we wanted to do something that's going to have an equal amount of space. So instead, we're not going to go by the actual unit spacage on the arch. Instead, we're just going to choose a value and go with it. So it's a fairly long area. Has to be even or an odd number though, so we have an even on both sides, with the odd one being the climax of the arch. So let's say 15. So we're going to have 15 points here. 7 on each side, and then the 8th one for each different side will be at the top. So we need to go ahead and create that. Let's see. Go to create. Draw linear. And I'm just going to go ahead and just we'll start at maybe interesting. Maybe we'll get rid of these arches here and just have these sections be that much longer. Or maybe we'll move them further away or something, we'll figure it out. So I'm going to start this arch from right about here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, that's still going to be too much. Let's go with the 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then the climax of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, we'll have to really modify this in order to get it to work appropriately. The center of this is going to be about right where that's at, so we want to move this around a bit. First of all, we don't want to go higher than this particular point here. So, about right there. So we have to modify this entire side along with this particular point in mind. It's going to be a very kind of obtuse looking archway here. Well, no, this part isn't really going to be restricted by the same height differences. Essentially, we do here to here. So 222, or 220 rather, is what's going to be restricting this particular archway. So that's what we have to design it in mind for. So we actually can go much higher than this one. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Oops, I did the space thing again. Let's actually move this up again. See, right about there was about right, wasn't it? Again, you want to try and actually get something that looks appropriate. It doesn't look just, you know, kind of tacked on or whatever. That looks proportional, that looks correctly spaced. And remember, if you go down, you have to move it to the right, and if you move it up, you have to go to, or rather to the left, and if you move it up, you have to go to the right, so that you keep the arch look to it. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it. First we need to move this to the correct position here, which is really about at the edge of this. We also want to put that extra point on the end of it. Let's go ahead and put that in. Add point. As you can see this time, this is a lot more off, because we did it over here in the 3D view instead of over here in the 2D view where we probably should have done it at. But we'll get it figured out here. So, first thing we want to do is actually just move this to where it should be, or where it's going to be, which is about right here. So it looks more correct on the 3D view. Probably right about there. Go back to point. We need to make sure we get these lined up appropriately. Actually do them a lot easier from the top here, I think. There's not as much room in between the different points. Like with all these kind of things, it's just really a tedious and time-consuming process that's slightly boring to watch, really. Or maybe even really boring to watch, but at the same time, damn it, what the hell? That one's correct, but this one's way off still. Okay, that one's fine now. I'm not going to get into the uber small, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and remake it. And just do it on the 2D thing here. It'll be a lot easier that way. Let's go ahead and go textured so I can see what's going on here. Make sure we get the appropriate things here. But anyway, curve on create, draw linear. So right here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's about going to be the 5th one. So 1, 2, 3, and then the 4th one. Let's go ahead and put in the 5th one right now as well. Alright, go back to wireframe so I can see what's going on here. Alright, so by points. First thing I want to do is to edit these points a little bit here. Start's going to be right about there. And we need to modify these just a little bit so that the spacing is spacing remains consistent with that. A little bit higher, A little more to the left. And I'll probably have to change, though this isn't exactly centered. You want to try to have an equal amount of space between all these points. It's sometimes easier to do than other times. Alright, so it looks pretty good, really. Let's go ahead and mess around with these endpoints here. First, we want to get this one on the correct spot. Just pretty much right about there. Next, I'm going to go to point mode again, and want to line this one up with this one. And basically just go through the same process as before of lining things up appropriately. I'll mess around with this one down here for now. That'll come a little bit later. So, that one's actually a little bit high. Apparently. I know, I guess it is low. Okay, now so we are looking at it from that particular angle there. So I don't know what's going on with that. It's really messed up. Front, home. Alright, there we go. So this is the correct side. But if you look at it from this angle. Okay, no, yeah, high. That was right. This is the high side. Duh. I'm having some brain farting issues right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this down to mimic the other side. So even that much of a difference will be noticeable. Or not even that much of a distance, but that was a really large space between them. That's incorrect. So now, if we look at this, this is really just above this spot here, above the railway. So we can easily see that this is not quite on the appropriate axis spot. So move it over a bit, and there we go. Damn. Actually, I'm also going to move these a little bit to the right as well. Alright. Next will be this one. So we go up here. Again, we see that's a little bit high, or very high rather, compared to where it should be at. Go ahead and move this up into place. Continue zooming in just to make sure we have it right. Looks good. And then we get the appropriate x-axis. arching going on here. Looks about right. And finally, this one. Again, way off, so move it down. Get it into place here. And move it into place. Alright, not perfect, but it'll do. So now we need to do the same thing as did before, though, and make the new primitive here. Cylinder, same things with these. 20. So now what we want to do is we actually want to get the stuff for this one now. So 197. That's for X and Z, and the y-axis is 3.8907. $789, huh? Reminds me of a number joke I heard on Dexter's Laboratory about 6 or 7 years ago, about how why is 6 afraid of 7 because 789. Eight not spelled as the number 8, but 8 as in you ate whatever, you ate the apple or something like that. But anyway, so we have our archway here. I've got our section here that we're going to use. Let's go ahead and move it over. And we'll actually go ahead and also move these over here for the time being. Just kind of get them out of the way until I figure out what to do with them. Let's see, bring this over, bring it down. Over. We need to bring it over so it's lined up correctly this way. So essentially I want to have it be in the same area here. What's interesting about that is actually it's less. Huh. Oh, because I haven't done this stuff yet. 1.7197. Same for Z. And then 3.8907. Actually, let's go ahead and leave that where it was there. So again, points. Select the top points here, move them down so that they're in line with this. Alright. And we'll actually also move this a little bit more just to the left, or rather right. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the top view here. So I can get this lined up appropriately. I'm just going to move it down off so I can try and tell where the... Alright, so it's just after that line right there. Just past this grid point. A little bit too far. And that'll about do it. So I want to select those polygons on the top there. Alright, and then just need to extrude it along the curve. And we'll do the 1 per knot. And there we have our archway for this side. So now we can go ahead and Control D it and copy it down to this side. And again, we'll just get rid of these two and figure out what to do with the other ones here in a second. Now we want to deal with these central ones here. Should get rid of that for the moment. These ones are actually going to need to be a little smaller, I think. So, alright, or rather maybe make these ones bigger. So, what does this do? Okay, so whatever we change this to, let's change that to. Actually, those, well, I don't know, we'll assume where they're at for the moment. So we said 17197. Let's say 19852. Better put the point in there, otherwise we'll have something really crazy. Alright, so 1.9852. Just so that it's a little bit bigger than this one is, so that this doesn't look weird when it locks into that. There's all this weird stuff going on with the lighting there, probably because we have so many objects. So now we need to take this curve and we need to modify it to what we need for what we want to do. So essentially this is going to come up higher. It's going to match the or rather maybe we just go to here and then it'll just kind of go straight up into it. Another issue that I run into a lot when designing things is trying to come up with ideas for varying themes making things different, but not so much different that they're not related to things that they were. And also trying to come up with concepts as well is somewhat of an issue. But I think what we'll do is stop for now, actually. See, we're running out of space on my J drive there. And I'll pick this up again probably next week after I finish it, and I'll show you the finished product. Or maybe rather tomorrow or Sunday after I render out all the footage. And we'll either then I'll finish it then, or I'll show you the finished product then. But thanks for watching the video. Feel free to subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time.